Have you ever wondered, why are we here? Or what is the purpose of life? In a world constantly changing, with uncertainty around every corner, many people find themselves searching for answers to these fundamental questions. Traditional religious frameworks may not resonate with everyone anymore. We live in an age where beliefs, institutions, and systems of understanding are rapidly evolving. But there is one path that stands out for its practical wisdom, self-empowerment, and transformative approach to life: Buddhism. Unlike other religions that focus on divine salvation, Buddhism places the emphasis on the individual's journey to find peace and understanding. Instead of waiting for a divine being to provide meaning or purpose, Buddhism invites us to look within ourselves and discover our true nature through personal experience. Buddhism teaches that we have the power to break free from suffering and create a life filled with meaning, compassion, and mindfulness. But there's a profound question that often arises when discussing Buddhism: why don't Buddhists believe in God? This question challenges conventional ideas about spirituality and purpose. It's not just about rejecting a creator deity. It's about rethinking how we find liberation, how we relate to suffering, and how we connect with the universe and each other. So, let's embark on a journey to explore this perspective, uncovering how Buddhism's non-theistic approach might actually be the key to understanding a deeper, more meaningful existence. Part 1. Understanding Buddhism's approach. To fully grasp why Buddhists don't believe in God, it's essential to first understand how Buddhism redefines the conversation. In most theistic religions, the concept of God often refers to an all-powerful, all-knowing creator who governs the universe and intervenes in human affairs. This divine figure is central to faith, morality, and the understanding of existence. Buddhism, however, operates on a radically different framework, one that prioritizes human experience, personal transformation, and the nature of suffering over metaphysical speculation. The Buddha's silence on God. One of the most striking aspects of Buddhism is the Buddha's deliberate silence on the question of God's existence. This wasn't due to ignorance or avoidance. It was a conscious decision based on his focus. The Buddha viewed questions about the universe's origins or a creator deity as distractions from what truly matters, addressing the pervasive issue of human suffering. He saw these debates as intellectual exercises that offered little to no practical benefit in achieving liberation. When asked about the existence of God, the Buddha would often redirect the conversation to the root causes of suffering and the means to overcome it. In the parable of the poisoned arrow, he explained that dwelling on metaphysical questions is like a man shot with a poisoned arrow who refuses medical treatment until he knows every detail about the arrow, who made it, its materials, and so on. By the time his questions are answered, he dies from the poison. The message is clear. Understanding and addressing suffering takes precedence over abstract speculation. A human-centered philosophy. At its core, Buddhism is not about divine intervention or salvation, but about empowering individuals to take control of their spiritual journeys. It's a human-centered philosophy that puts the tools for liberation firmly in the hands of each person. This shift away from reliance on external deities marks a profound departure from theistic traditions. Key Buddhist principles, such as karma, rebirth, and non-self, illustrate this self-reliant approach. Focus on human suffering. The Buddhist teachings center on the Four Noble Truths, which serve as a roadmap for understanding and overcoming suffering. The truth of suffering, dukkha life, is inherently unsatisfactory, marked by pain, change, and impermanence. The truth of the cause of suffering, samadaya craving, attachment, and ignorance lie at the root of human suffering. The truth of the cessation of suffering, nirodha liberation, is possible by letting go of craving and ignorance. The truth of the path, magga, the Eightfold Path, provides a practical guide to achieving liberation. Unlike many theistic religions that attribute suffering to divine will or punishment, Buddhism frames it as a universal human condition arising from our own actions and mental habits. By focusing on the present moment and taking personal responsibility, individuals can transform their relationship with suffering. Karma and rebirth, the power of personal responsibility. In Buddhism, Karma isn't about divine judgment, but a natural law of cause and effect. Every thought, word, and action sets into motion consequences that shape future experiences. Unlike theistic systems that rely on a divine being to administer justice, Buddhism holds individuals accountable for their own lives. This perspective is both liberating and daunting. It empowers people to create their destinies, but also places the burden of responsibility squarely on their shoulders. Rebirth, a continuum of consequences. Rebirth in Buddhism is often misunderstood. It doesn't involve a permanent soul migrating from one life to the next, as found in other spiritual traditions. Instead, it's likened to a flame passing from one candle to another. While there's continuity, there's no fixed entity or self that travels between lives. What carries over are the karmic imprints, seeds of actions that influence the next life. Consider this analogy. If you plant an apple seed, you'll grow an apple tree, not a mango tree. Similarly, your actions, karma, determine the nature of your experiences in this life and beyond. There's no need for a divine overseer because the system of karma operates autonomously. A story of karma in action. To illustrate karma's power, there's a famous Buddhist story about Angulimala, a feared bandit who killed hundreds. When he encountered the Buddha, Angulimala experienced a profound change of heart. Despite his violent past, he became a monk and dedicated his life to helping others. His transformation demonstrates that while karma determines the conditions of our lives, redemption is always possible through mindful actions and intention. Non-self, Anatta, the illusion of a permanent soul. Perhaps the most challenging concept in Buddhism is Anatta, or non-self. Unlike many religions that describe the soul as an eternal essence created by God, Buddhism posits that there is no fixed, unchanging self. Instead, what we perceive as self is a dynamic interplay of thoughts, emotions, and sensations that constantly arise and fade. The 5 aggregates. To understand the non-self, Buddhism breaks down human existence into 5 components, known as the 5 aggregates. Form, rupa, the physical body and sense organs. Sensation, Vedana, feelings arising from sensory experiences. Perception, sana, recognition and interpretation of sensory inputs. Mental formations, sankhara, thoughts, intentions, and habits. Consciousness, vijnana, awareness of the sensory and mental world. These aggregates work together to create the illusion of a unified self, but upon closer examination, there's no core essence. It's like peeling an onion, layer by layer. You find nothing solid at the center. Why this matters? The concept of non-self challenges the human tendency to cling to identity and permanence. Much of our suffering stems from attachment to ideas like, "This is who I am," or "This is mine." By letting go of these attachments, we can experience profound freedom and peace. The practical impact of Buddhism's approach. Buddhism's focus on human suffering, karma, and non-self has profound implications for daily life. It shifts the focus from external salvation to internal transformation. Instead of waiting for divine intervention, individuals are encouraged to cultivate ethical conduct, mindfulness, and wisdom through practices like meditation. A modern-day example. Take the story of Emma, a high-powered executive who felt unfulfilled despite her career success. Turning to Buddhism, she began practicing mindfulness and reflecting on the impermanence of her achievements. Over time, Emma realized that her relentless pursuit of status stemmed from a misplaced sense of self-worth. By embracing the Buddhist principles of karma and non-self, she found contentment in the present moment and greater harmony in her relationships. The relevance of Buddhism's non-theistic approach. In a world where many are disillusioned with traditional religious structures, Buddhism's emphasis on personal responsibility and direct experience resonates deeply. By reframing spiritual growth as an inward journey rather than reliance on external deities, it empowers individuals to take control of their lives. Buddhism's approach challenges us to question long-held assumptions. Is happiness something we seek outside ourselves, or is it already within us? Can we find meaning without a divine overseer? How do we navigate suffering in a way that fosters growth rather than despair? These questions are not just philosophical, they're deeply practical. They invite us to reflect on how we live and what truly matters. Through its focus on human suffering, the law of karma, and the concept of non-self, Buddhism offers a framework for spiritual growth that transcends the need for a deity. It's a philosophy that dares us to look inward, embrace impermanence, and discover the boundless potential within. Whether or not you subscribe to its teachings, Buddhism's insights provide valuable tools for navigating the complexities of modern life. Part 2. The power of self-empowerment. At its heart, Buddhism is a philosophy of self-empowerment, urging individuals to take charge of their own spiritual journeys. Unlike many religious traditions that place salvation or enlightenment in the hands of an all-powerful deity, Buddhism flips the script. It asserts that the path to liberation lies within each of us. This radical ethos is perfectly captured in the Buddha's final words to his disciples: "Be a lamp unto yourself." Self-empowerment over divine salvation. In most theistic religions, believers often turn to prayer, worship, or offerings to seek divine intervention in their lives. Whether it's praying for forgiveness, blessings, or guidance, the underlying assumption is that salvation or enlightenment comes from an external source. Buddhism challenges this idea by teaching that we each have the capacity to achieve liberation through our own efforts. Rather than relying on divine grace, Buddhists cultivate inner strength and wisdom through meditation, training the mind to focus, observe, and understand reality; ethical living, practicing compassion, honesty, and non-harm toward others; mindfulness, being fully present in each moment to recognize and overcome suffering. This approach is both empowering and daunting. It removes the safety net of divine intervention and places the full responsibility for one's spiritual growth on the individual. Yet, it's precisely this sense of accountability that makes Buddhism so transformative. The radical freedom of responsibility. One of the core teachings of Buddhism is that enlightenment is accessible to everyone, regardless of their background, status, or circumstances. The Buddha, born a prince, renounced his wealth and privilege to show that spiritual liberation isn't a gift bestowed upon the chosen few. It's something anyone can achieve through dedicated effort. This concept of self-empowerment removes the hierarchical structures often seen in religious traditions. There's no intermediary between you and your enlightenment, no priest, no divine being, no sacred ritual. You are your own guide, teacher, and savior. A story to illustrate: Saryuta and the Skeptic. One of the most compelling examples of Buddhism's emphasis on self-empowerment is the story of Saryuta, a devoted disciple of the Buddha. Saryuta once encountered a wandering skeptic who challenged him, saying, "Your path is incomplete. You don't believe in a creator God. How can you find truth without divine guidance?" Rather than becoming defensive, Saryuta calmly replied, "Even if a creator God exists, our focus remains on what we can do here and now." The Buddhist teachings lead to peace and liberation, not because of faith, but because of their practical wisdom. This interaction highlights a key distinction in Buddhism: its focus on direct experience over abstract belief. Saryuta didn't deny the possibility of a divine being. He simply pointed out that speculation about God does little to address the realities of suffering and the human condition. Instead, the Buddhist path prioritizes tangible, actionable practices that lead to inner peace. The practical wisdom of the Eightfold Path. Central to Buddhism's philosophy of self-empowerment is the Eightfold Path, a set of practical guidelines for ethical and mindful living. These steps don't rely on divine intervention. They're tools for personal transformation. Right view. Understanding the nature of reality and the causes of suffering. Right intention. Committing to self-improvement and compassion. Right speech. Speaking truthfully and kindly. Right action. Behaving ethically and avoiding harm. Right livelihood. Earning a living in ways that align with one's values. Right effort. Cultivating positive habits and overcoming negativity. Right mindfulness. Staying present and aware in every moment. Right concentration. Developing deep focus through meditation. Unlike commandments handed down by a deity, the Eightfold Path is a roadmap for self-discovery. Each step empowers practitioners to take control of their thoughts, actions, and choices. Meditation, the engine of self-discovery. Meditation is perhaps the most iconic aspect of Buddhist practice, and for good reason. It's a tool for exploring the depths of the mind and uncovering the root causes of suffering. Through meditation, Buddhists learn to observe their thoughts without judgment, recognize the impermanence of emotions and sensations, cultivate compassion and clarity. Unlike prayer, which often involves seeking something external, meditation is an inward journey. It's a way of turning the lens inward, confronting one's own fears, desires, and attachments, and gradually letting them go. A modern example, the overworked CEO. Imagine a high-powered CEO named Sarah, overwhelmed by the pressures of her job. She turns to meditation not as a religious practice, but as a practical way to manage her stress. Over time, Sarah begins to notice patterns in her thinking, her constant need for validation, her fear of failure, and her attachment to control. By observing these thoughts without judgment, she learns to let go of her anxieties. Meditation doesn't solve her problems, but it empowers her to face them with clarity and resilience. Buddhist ethics, compassion as a choice. Another pillar of self-empowerment in Buddhism is its emphasis on ethical living. Unlike theistic religions, where morality is often dictated by divine commandments, Buddhism grounds ethics in the principle of non-harm, ahimsa, and the recognition of interconnectedness. When we act with kindness and compassion, we create positive karma that benefits not only ourselves but the entire web of life. This isn't about earning favor with a deity, it's about cultivating a harmonious relationship with the world. A story, The Monk and the Robber. A monk was once robbed by a desperate thief. Instead of condemning the man, the monk said, "Take what you need, but leave enough for others." Struck by the monk's kindness, the thief later returned, not to steal but to seek guidance. This simple act of compassion transformed both their lives, illustrating that ethical choices have the power to create ripples of positive change. Overcoming obstacles without divine help. Self-empowerment doesn't mean the journey is easy. In fact, the absence of divine intervention can make the path feel lonely at times. But this is precisely where Buddhism's emphasis on community and mindfulness becomes crucial. Sangha, community practitioners support one another, sharing insights and encouragement. Mindfulness practices, by staying present, Buddhists can face challenges with patience and grace. Example, a farmer's perseverance. A poor farmer once approached the Buddha, frustrated by his unending struggles. Instead of offering divine promises, the Buddha taught him to observe his own mind. The farmer realized that his suffering stemmed not just from his poverty, but from his resentment and envy. By changing his perspective, he found peace in his circumstances and a renewed sense of purpose. The liberation of radical self-reliance. At its core, Buddhism's focus on self-empowerment is about freedom, not just freedom from suffering, but freedom from dependence on external forces. By placing the tools for liberation in the hands of each individual, Buddhism offers a path that is both deeply personal and universally accessible. This radical ethos challenges us to take ownership of our lives. It invites us to question our assumptions about happiness and fulfillment, let go of attachments and fears, trust in our own wisdom and capacity for growth. In a world that often feels chaotic and uncertain, this message is both empowering and profoundly comforting. It reminds us that we don't need to look outside ourselves for salvation. The path to peace and liberation is already within us, waiting to be discovered. Part 3. Buddhism's radical approach to truth. At the heart of Buddhism lies a groundbreaking perspective on truth, one that challenges the reliance on authority, tradition, or dogma. Unlike many spiritual traditions that emphasize faith in sacred texts or divine figures, Buddhism dares to place the burden of discovering truth on the individual. This radical approach to truth makes Buddhism profoundly unique, empowering practitioners to question everything, even the Buddha's teachings. Question everything, even the Buddha. The Buddha's teachings are built on a foundation of free inquiry, rather than asking followers to blindly accept his words. He actively encouraged skepticism and personal investigation. His message was clear. Truth isn't something to be handed down from a higher power. It must be discovered through direct experience. In the Kalama Sutta, often referred to as the Charter of Free Inquiry, the Buddha famously advised, "Do not believe in anything simply because you have heard it. Do not believe in traditions just because they have been handed down for generations. Do not believe in something simply because it is written in scripture or spoken by a revered teacher. When you know for yourselves that something is wholesome and good, then accept it and follow it." This revolutionary statement places Buddhism in stark contrast to many religious systems that prioritize faith over evidence. By empowering individuals to seek truth through their own experiences, Buddhism creates a deeply personal and dynamic spiritual practice. Truth as direct experience. Buddhism's emphasis on personal experience stems from its understanding that ultimate truth cannot be captured by words, doctrines, or intellectual debates. Truth, according to the Buddha, is something to be lived and felt. This is why Buddhist practice places such a strong emphasis on meditation and mindfulness. They are tools for directly observing reality as it is. Through meditation, practitioners learn to quiet their minds, observe their thoughts and emotions, and gain insight into the nature of existence. This process isn't about accepting prepackaged answers. It's about uncovering truths that resonate on a deeply intuitive level. A modern example, the scientist's awakening. Consider a neuroscientist who turns to meditation not out of faith, but as an experiment to explore consciousness. Initially skeptical, she approaches the practice with curiosity. Over time, she notices profound changes, not only in her mental clarity but also in her understanding of herself and the world. Through meditation, she discovers truths about impermanence and interconnectedness that no scientific theory or religious dogma could have conveyed as powerfully. The Kalama Sutta, a testament to inquiry. The Kalama Sutta exemplifies Buddhism's radical openness to inquiry. In this scripture, the Buddha encounters a group of villagers confused by the competing claims of various spiritual teachers. Rather than asserting his own superiority, the Buddha offers a simple yet profound guideline. Test everything for yourself. Observe the consequences of beliefs and actions. Embrace what leads to well-being and abandon what leads to harm. This teaching underscores Buddhism's pragmatic approach to spirituality. Truth is not about abstract metaphysics, but about what works, what alleviates suffering and promotes peace. A farmer's enlightenment. One of the most memorable stories illustrating this principle involves a poor farmer who approached the Buddha. Frustrated by his unrelenting hardships, the farmer expected divine intervention, but the Buddha offered him something entirely different, a lesson in impermanence. The Buddha guided the farmer to meditate on the fleeting nature of life. At first, the farmer was resistant. He wanted tangible solutions, not abstract ideas. But as he persisted, something remarkable happened. The farmer began to see his struggles in a new light. He realized that much of his suffering stemmed from clinging to things he couldn't control, his crops, his possessions, even his family's expectations. By understanding impermanence, the farmer found a profound sense of peace. This transformation didn't come from a miracle or divine promise. It came from the farmer's own insight, cultivated through mindful observation. The illusion of fixed truths. A core tenet of Buddhism is that all phenomena are impermanent and interdependent. This view extends to truths and beliefs. What may seem true in one moment might no longer apply in another, because reality is constantly in flux. For example, a belief that brings comfort in childhood may become restrictive in adulthood. A teaching that works for one person might not resonate with another. Buddhism's radical approach to truth acknowledges this complexity. It encourages practitioners to remain adaptable, open-minded, and willing to let go of beliefs that no longer serve them. The parable of the raft. The Buddha likened his teachings to a raft used to cross a river. Once you've reached the other side, you don't carry the raft on your back, you leave it behind. Similarly, even Buddhist teachings are tools, not ultimate truths. They are meant to be used, questioned, and eventually transcended. Faith versus inquiry, a balanced path. While Buddhism values inquiry over blind faith, it doesn't dismiss faith entirely. Instead, it redefines faith as confidence rooted in experience. For beginners on the spiritual path, some degree of faith is necessary, faith in the process, in the possibility of transformation, and in the guidance of teachers. But this faith is provisional, meant to be tested and validated through personal practice. Example, a skeptic's journey. Imagine a skeptical young woman who attends her first meditation retreat. She has no faith in Buddhism and doubts the effectiveness of meditation, but she decides to give it a try. Over the course of the retreat, she begins to notice subtle shifts. Her mind becomes calmer, her emotions more balanced. This direct experience transforms her skepticism into confidence. Her faith is no longer based on someone else's claims, but on her own observations. Buddhism's relevance in modern times. In an era dominated by misinformation, rigid ideologies, and polarized beliefs, Buddhism's commitment to free inquiry is more relevant than ever. It offers a framework for navigating the complexities of modern life with clarity and discernment. Practical applications. Critical thinking. The Buddhist emphasis on questioning aligns with modern education's focus on critical thinking skills, mindfulness, and decision-making. By staying present and observing emotions, we can make more thoughtful choices. Resilience. Understanding impermanence helps us adapt to change and overcome setbacks. Example, a business leader's transformation. A CEO facing a major crisis in her company turns to mindfulness practices. By observing her fears and anxieties without judgment, she gains clarity and finds creative solutions to her challenges. Her ability to question her own assumptions and remain present becomes a powerful tool for navigating uncertainty. The courage to question. Buddhism's approach to truth requires courage. It asks us to let go of comforting but unexamined beliefs, face uncertainty with curiosity rather than fear, take responsibility for our own understanding. This path isn't always easy, but it's deeply rewarding. By questioning everything, we open ourselves to deeper insights, greater freedom, and a more authentic connection to reality. Living the Kalama Sutta. The teachings of the Kalama Sutta are not just philosophical, they're profoundly practical. In our everyday lives, we can apply its principles by questioning our assumptions about happiness and success, observing the impact of our thoughts, words, and actions on ourselves and others, embracing practices that promote well-being, such as mindfulness and compassion. Example, the teacher and the student. A young student once asked his Buddhist teacher, "What is the ultimate truth?" The teacher replied, "The ultimate truth is that you must find your own truth." This simple exchange encapsulates Buddhism's radical ethos. Truth isn't something we inherit or borrow. It's something we discover for ourselves. Conclusion: truth beyond words. Buddhism's radical approach to truth challenges us to look beyond doctrines, labels, and fixed ideas. It invites us to embrace the uncertainty of life with an open mind and a compassionate heart. By seeking truth through direct experience, we discover not only the nature of reality, but also the boundless potential within ourselves. Part 4. Buddhist views on karma and rebirth. In Buddhism, karma and rebirth are foundational concepts, but they are often misunderstood. Unlike in many religious traditions, where karma might be seen as divine punishment or reward, and rebirth as the transmigration of an eternal soul, Buddhism offers a profoundly different interpretation. These ideas are rooted in natural laws, personal responsibility, and a deep understanding of cause and effect. Karma, the natural law of cause and effect. At its core, karma is a natural principle, not a mechanism controlled by a divine being. In Buddhism, karma means action or deed, and it refers to the intentional thoughts, words, and actions that shape our experiences. Karma is not about judgment, it's about consequences. Every action we take creates ripples, and those ripples eventually return to us, for better or worse. Karma is empowering. The Buddhist view of karma places our destiny firmly in our own hands. Instead of relying on a divine judge, Buddhism teaches that we are our own authors of destiny. This is both liberating and challenging. It means we have the power to shape our future, but we must also take full responsibility for our actions. Intention matters. In Buddhism, karma is not just about what we do, but why we do it. Actions driven by kindness, compassion, and wisdom create positive karma, while actions motivated by greed, hatred, and ignorance create negative karma. The cosmic accountant within. Imagine your life as a ledger, but instead of an external accountant tallying your deeds, you are the one holding the pen. Buddhism teaches that karma operates like a cosmic balance sheet, but there's no judge or deity keeping score. The cosmic accountant is within you, and your intentions and actions determine your balance. This idea shifts the focus from external accountability to internal responsibility. You are not at the mercy of an omnipotent being. Instead, you have the agency to create a life of meaning and growth. Rebirth, continuity without a permanent soul. Rebirth in Buddhism is one of the most fascinating yet challenging concepts to grasp. Unlike other religious traditions that describe an eternal soul migrating from one body to another, Buddhism asserts that there is no fixed self or soul, Anatta. Instead, rebirth is a continuation of karmic energy, a process akin to passing a flame from one candle to another. The flame analogy: imagine lighting one candle with the flame of another. The second flame exists because of the first, yet they are not identical. Similarly, rebirth is the result of actions and intentions from a previous existence, but it does not involve the transfer of a permanent self. Karma drives rebirth. The seeds of karma influence the conditions of rebirth. Positive karma might lead to favorable circumstances in the next life, while negative karma can result in challenging experiences. However, the cycle of rebirth is not about reward or punishment. It's about the continuation of causes and effects, breaking the cycle of samsara. In Buddhism, the ultimate goal is not to accumulate good karma for a better rebirth, but to break free from the cycle of samsara, the endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. This liberation is known as nirvana, a state of profound peace and freedom from suffering. The role of wisdom. Liberation requires wisdom, which comes from understanding the nature of reality, including impermanence, non-self, and the law of karma. Compassion as a path. While seeking liberation, Buddhists cultivate compassion and ethical living, not just to create positive karma, but to ease the suffering of others. A story, the karmic chain. To illustrate these principles, consider the story of a merchant named Kavi. Kavi was known for his greed, often exploiting his workers to amass wealth. After falling ill and facing death, he realized his actions had caused great suffering. In his final moments, he vowed to live differently if given another chance. In his next life, Kavi was reborn as a poor but kind-hearted farmer. Despite his struggles, he found joy in helping others and creating a sense of community. Over time, his actions transformed his karmic balance, leading to a life of peace and fulfillment. This story shows that while karma influences rebirth, it is never too late to change its trajectory. Our actions in this moment can reshape the future, both in this life and beyond. The ripple effect of karma. Karma is often compared to ripples on a pond. When we throw a stone into the water, it creates waves that extend outward. Similarly, our actions affect not only ourselves but also those around us. Immediate consequences. Some karmic effects are immediate. For example, a kind word can brighten someone's day, while a harsh word can cause pain. Delayed consequences. Other effects take time to manifest, like seeds that grow into plants. Actions we take today may influence our lives years down the line, or even in a future rebirth. Practical lessons from karma. Understanding karma isn't just a philosophical exercise. It has profound implications for how we live our lives. Mindful choices. By recognizing that our actions have consequences, we can make more mindful decisions. This might mean pausing before reacting in anger or choosing to act with generosity instead of selfishness. Taking responsibility. The Buddhist view of karma encourages us to take responsibility for our lives. While we can't control everything that happens to us, we can control how we respond. Letting go of blame. Instead of blaming others or external forces for our struggles, Karma teaches us to look inward and consider how our own actions may have contributed. Modern interpretations of karma. In contemporary society, the concept of karma has been adapted in various ways. Many people use the term casually, as in, what goes around comes around. While this interpretation captures the essence of cause and effect, it often oversimplifies the depth of Buddhist teachings. Karma beyond good and evil. In Buddhism, karma isn't about labeling actions as good or evil. It's about understanding how actions align with the principles of wisdom and compassion. The intersection of karma and psychology. Modern psychology has drawn parallels to karma, particularly in the way our thoughts and behaviors create patterns that shape our experiences. A modern example, karma in action. Imagine a young professional, Alex, who is constantly stressed and overwhelmed at work. After a particularly difficult day, Alex lashes out at a colleague. This action creates immediate negative ripples, strained relationships, and increased tension. Recognizing this pattern, Alex decides to change. By practicing mindfulness and addressing stress more constructively, Alex begins to repair relationships and create a more positive environment. This example shows how karma operates in real time. It's not about divine retribution. It's about the natural consequences of our actions and the power we have to change them. The ethics of karma. Buddhism's teachings on karma also serve as a foundation for ethical living. When we understand that our actions have far-reaching consequences, we become more thoughtful about how we interact with the world. Compassionate action. Acting with kindness creates positive karmic energy that benefits both ourselves and others. Avoiding harm. By refraining from harmful actions, we prevent negative karma from taking root. Creating a better world. Karma isn't just about individual growth. It's about contributing to a more compassionate and harmonious society. Rebirth and personal growth. While rebirth may seem like a distant concept, its underlying principles are deeply relevant to personal growth. Each moment offers an opportunity to rebirth ourselves through our choices. By letting go of past mistakes and cultivating positive actions, we can continuously evolve. Daily rebirth. Each morning is a chance to start anew, shaping our future through mindful actions. Legacy beyond life. Even if one doesn't believe in literal rebirth, the impact of our actions lives on in the lives we touch. The universal appeal of karma. The Buddhist view of karma resonates across cultures and belief systems because it speaks to universal truths about responsibility, consequences, and the interconnectedness of all beings. Whether or not one believes in rebirth, the principles of karma offer valuable guidance for leading a thoughtful and intentional life. Final reflection on karma and rebirth. Karma and rebirth are not about fear or punishment. They are about understanding the profound interconnectedness of our actions and experiences. By embracing these principles, we take ownership of our lives and recognize the incredible potential we have to create positive change, not just for ourselves, but for the world around us. Part 5. Meditation and Direct Experience. Meditation is the beating heart of Buddhism, a practice that transcends rituals, dogmas, and intellectual debates. Unlike approaches that rely on external worship or divine intercession, meditation in Buddhism is about turning inward, observing the mind, and uncovering the truths of existence. It's not just a tool for relaxation, but a transformative practice that leads to profound insight into reality. Meditation, a journey within. In Buddhism, meditation is seen as the most direct path to enlightenment. It's a journey of self-discovery, where the practitioner explores their thoughts, emotions, and perceptions with mindfulness and curiosity. The Buddha himself described meditation as a way to pierce through the illusions of the world and glimpse the nature of reality as it truly is. What meditation is not. It's not about chanting mantras to please a deity. It's not about escaping from life's challenges or suppressing emotions. It's not about intellectualizing concepts or seeking approval. What meditation is. It's about cultivating awareness and insight. It's about being present with the moment, free from judgment or distraction. It's about peeling back the layers of the mind to reveal the wisdom and compassion that lie within. The practice of mindfulness. At the core of Buddhist meditation is mindfulness, the practice of being fully present in the moment. Mindfulness involves observing your thoughts, sensations, and surroundings without clinging to them or pushing them away. Mindfulness of breath. The simplest yet most profound meditation technique involves focusing on the breath. By observing each inhale and exhale, practitioners anchor themselves in the present moment. Mindfulness of emotions. Meditation helps practitioners recognize emotions as fleeting phenomena. Anger, sadness, and joy come and go like waves. And through mindfulness, we learn not to be swept away by them. Mindfulness of thoughts. Rather than trying to stop thoughts, meditation encourages us to observe them as they arise and dissolve, realizing that we are not our thoughts. A King's Awakening. One of the most compelling stories about meditation's power comes from a parable involving a king. The king, curious about the Buddha's teachings, asked, "What is the highest truth?" Rather than responding with a lecture or scripture, the Buddha invited the king to sit in silence and meditate. Initially restless, the king struggled to quiet his mind, but as he persisted, he began to experience moments of stillness and clarity. In this silence, the king realized that truth cannot be fully expressed in words or concepts, it must be experienced directly. This story highlights a fundamental Buddhist principle. Truth is not something to be debated or intellectualized. It is something to be lived. Seeing through illusions. The ultimate goal of meditation is to see through the illusions that cloud our perception of reality. Buddhism teaches that much of our suffering arises from attachment, clinging to things, people, or experiences as if they were permanent. Aversion, rejecting or resisting what we find unpleasant. Ignorance, misunderstanding the nature of self and reality. Through meditation, practitioners begin to unravel these patterns. They come to see that everything is impermanent. The self is not a fixed entity, but a collection of ever-changing thoughts, feelings, and experiences. Suffering is optional and often arises from how we react to life circumstances. The ultimate prize of meditation. Meditation is not just a means to an end. It is a profound experience in and of itself. However, its practice often leads to transformative outcomes. Insight into reality. Meditation reveals truths that can't be grasped through intellectual reasoning. Practitioners begin to see the interconnectedness of all things and the emptiness of fixed concepts. Boundless compassion. As meditation dissolves the illusion of separation, practitioners naturally develop compassion for all beings. Recognizing that we are all interconnected leads to acts of kindness and understanding. Inner peace. Meditation cultivates a sense of equanimity, allowing practitioners to remain calm and centered even in the face of life's challenges. A modern perspective on meditation. In today's fast-paced world, meditation has become increasingly popular as a tool for stress relief and mental clarity. While these benefits are undeniable, the Buddhist tradition offers something deeper, a path to spiritual awakening. Scientific backing. Modern neuroscience has validated the benefits of meditation, showing that it enhances focus, reduces anxiety, and even rewires the brain for greater resilience. Beyond relaxation. While many approach meditation as a way to unwind, its true power lies in its ability to transform the way we perceive ourselves and the world. A personal example, the burned-out executive. Consider Jane, a high-powered executive juggling the demands of work and family. Overwhelmed and on the verge of burnout, she turned to meditation as a last resort. At first, it felt like an impossible task, sitting still and observing her racing thoughts. But with persistence, she began to notice subtle changes. She became less reactive, more present, and more attuned to her emotions. Over time, meditation not only helped her manage stress, but also brought a newfound sense of purpose and connection to her life. The stages of meditation. Buddhist meditation often unfolds in stages, each deepening the practitioner's understanding and experience. Concentration. Samatha, developing focus and calmness by concentrating on a single object, such as the breath. Insight. Vipassana, observing the nature of thoughts, emotions, and sensations to gain insight into impermanence, suffering, and non-self. Compassion. Metta cultivating loving kindness for oneself and others, breaking down barriers of judgment and division. These stages are not linear. They often overlap and inform one another, creating a holistic path of transformation. Challenges in meditation. Meditation is simple in theory but challenging in practice. Beginners often face obstacles such as restlessness. The mind naturally resists stillness, flitting from thought to thought. Doubt. Practitioners may question whether they are doing it right or if meditation is even worthwhile. Discomfort. Physical and emotional discomfort often arise, testing one's patience and perseverance. However, these challenges are an integral part of the process. Each obstacle offers an opportunity to practice patience, resilience, and self-compassion. Overcoming challenges. Start small. Even a few minutes of meditation can make a difference. Consistency is more important than duration. Seek guidance. Joining a meditation group or learning from a teacher can provide valuable support and accountability. Be gentle. Meditation is not about achieving perfection, but about showing up with an open and curious mind. The ripple effects of meditation. The benefits of meditation extend far beyond the cushion. By cultivating mindfulness and insight, practitioners find that their relationships, decision-making, and overall quality of life improve. Improved relationships. Meditation fosters empathy and understanding, allowing for deeper connections with others. Enhanced focus. By training the mind to stay present, practitioners become more productive and less distracted. Greater resilience. Meditation builds inner strength, enabling individuals to navigate challenges with grace and confidence. A story of transformation. The fisherman. In a small village, a fisherman struggled with anger and frustration. He often clashed with his family and neighbors, blaming them for his unhappiness. One day, he attended a meditation retreat out of curiosity. Through the practice, he began to see how his own thoughts and reactions were fueling his suffering. He realized that peace wasn't something to be found outside. It was something to be cultivated within. When he returned to his village, the fisherman was transformed. His newfound calm and kindness inspired those around him, creating a ripple effect of harmony. Meditation as a universal practice. While meditation is a cornerstone of Buddhism, its benefits are universal. People from all walks of life and belief systems can practice meditation to cultivate greater awareness, compassion, and peace. Secular applications. Meditation has been integrated into schools, workplaces, and healthcare settings, benefiting people regardless of their spiritual or religious affiliations. Bridging divides. By focusing on shared human experiences, meditation fosters unity and understanding across cultures and communities. The eternal journey of meditation. Meditation is not about reaching a final destination. It's an ongoing journey of self-discovery and growth. Each session is an opportunity to explore the depths of the mind, uncover hidden truths, and reconnect with the present moment. Through meditation, practitioners embark on a path that leads not only to personal transformation, but also to a deeper connection with the world around them. By sitting in silence, observing the mind, and embracing the flow of life, we begin to see that the ultimate prize of meditation is already within us. The boundless wisdom, compassion, and peace that are our true nature. Part 6. Challenges to Buddhist non-theism. Buddhism's non-theistic perspective has long sparked debate and faced criticism, particularly from theistic traditions that center around belief in a creator God. Critics argue that without a divine being to define morality or guide the world, life risks becoming meaningless, chaotic, or morally bankrupt. Without the authority of an omnipotent being to set moral standards, they claim, human existence may lack purpose and direction. However, Buddhism counters this criticism by offering an alternative view of life, one where meaning arises not from a deity but from the choices we make, the relationships we cultivate, and the mindfulness with which we navigate the world. Far from rendering life meaningless, Buddhism argues that the absence of a creator God actually amplifies our personal responsibility and empowers individuals to create their own meaning. The Buddhist response to the theistic critique. At the core of the theistic critique lies the belief that without a divine figure, there is no objective basis for morality or ethical behavior. Many theistic systems hold that divine commandments provide a moral compass, making the divine the ultimate source of right and wrong. In this framework, moral principles are often seen as given by God, and adherence to them is rooted in the fear of divine punishment or the hope for divine reward. Buddhism, however, offers a radically different perspective. In Buddhist teachings, morality is not imposed by a divine authority but is grounded in compassion, wisdom, and an understanding of the interconnectedness of all beings. Ethics, in Buddhism, arise from the natural law of cause and effect, karma, where actions are judged by their consequences rather than by a divine decree. Key Buddhist principles that counter this criticism include: meaning comes from our actions and relationships. In Buddhism, meaning and purpose are found in our interactions with others, in the ethical decisions we make, and in the mindfulness we cultivate throughout our lives. Life is not devoid of purpose just because it isn't governed by a deity. Rather, it is imbued with meaning through our conscious choices and compassionate actions. The role of mindfulness in finding meaning. Buddhism places great emphasis on mindfulness, the practice of being fully present and aware in every moment. By living mindfully, practitioners develop a deeper understanding of the world and their place in it. This awareness allows them to find meaning in even the most ordinary moments, seeing the interconnectedness of all things and recognizing the value of each interaction. Personal responsibility. The absence of God in Buddhism doesn't diminish spirituality. It enhances it by placing the responsibility for growth and ethical living squarely on the shoulders of the individual. Without a divine figure to dictate right and wrong, it is up to each person to make conscious choices based on compassion, wisdom, and a recognition of the impermanence of life. Ethics rooted in compassion and understanding. Buddhism asserts that true morality is not born from fear of divine punishment, but from the understanding of the interconnectedness of all beings and the desire to alleviate suffering. In Buddhist philosophy, the ultimate ethical goal is to develop compassion for all living beings, understanding that our actions have consequences not only for ourselves, but for the entire world. Compassion as the heart of ethics. In Buddhism, compassion, karuna, is the cornerstone of ethical living. Compassion is not just an emotion but a way of being, actively seeking to reduce the suffering of others and to act with kindness in all situations. This ethical framework is built not on the fear of retribution from a divine figure, but on the recognition of our shared humanity and the understanding that all beings seek happiness and wish to avoid suffering. The impermanence of life. One of the key insights in Buddhism is the recognition of the impermanence of all things. Everything in the world is transient: our thoughts, emotions, relationships, and even our own lives. This understanding drives Buddhists to live with greater awareness and compassion, knowing that the actions we take today shape not only our own future but the future of those around us. True ethics come from self-awareness. According to Buddhism, ethical behavior doesn't arise from the threat of divine punishment, but from a deep awareness of the consequences of our actions. Buddhists strive to live in a way that causes the least amount of harm to others and that fosters peace, understanding, and wisdom. This personal responsibility is a hallmark of Buddhist ethics. It empowers individuals to act with integrity, regardless of external authorities or rewards. Example: the wandering aesthetic and the Buddhist response. One of the most famous encounters illustrating this Buddhist approach to ethics is the story of a wandering sage who challenged the Buddhist monk Sariputta. The sage, a devotee of a theistic worldview, declared that Buddhism lacked a moral foundation because it didn't believe in God. He argued that without a divine being, Buddhists had no reason to behave ethically. Without a belief in God, he said, Buddhism lacks a basis for morality. Sariputta, one of the Buddha's chief disciples, responded calmly and wisely. Morality rooted in fear of divine punishment is fragile. True ethics come from compassion and understanding, not from blind obedience to divine commands. Sariputta's response perfectly encapsulates the Buddhist view of ethics. In Buddhism, morality is not a matter of adhering to external rules dictated by a higher power, but a natural expression of our inner wisdom. understanding, and compassion. The desire to do good is not motivated by fear or reward, but by a deep understanding of the nature of suffering and the interconnectedness of all beings. The role of mindfulness in living morally. Buddhism teaches that mindfulness is a powerful tool for cultivating ethical behavior. Through mindfulness practice, individuals become more aware of their actions, words, and thoughts. They develop the ability to pause before reacting, to consider the consequences of their actions, and to choose the path of wisdom and compassion. Mindful awareness of one's actions in everyday life. Mindfulness encourages Buddhists to be aware of how their actions affect others. By practicing mindfulness, a person becomes attuned to their intentions and the potential consequences of their behavior. This awareness leads to greater self-regulation and a natural inclination to act with kindness and consideration. Cultivating right speech, right action, and right livelihood. As part of the Eightfold Path, Buddhism emphasizes right speech, right action, and right livelihood. These aspects of ethical living are not dictated by a higher power, but are cultivated through mindfulness and awareness. Right speech involves speaking truthfully and kindly. Right action involves acting in ways that do no harm. And right livelihood encourages choosing a career or lifestyle that promotes well-being for all. The absence of God does not mean meaninglessness. One of the most common critiques of Buddhist non-theism is the belief that life without God must be meaningless. Without a divine creator, critics argue, there can be no ultimate purpose or moral direction in life. However, Buddhism counters this view by suggesting that meaning comes from within. Meaning arises from action and relationships. In Buddhism, meaning is created through our actions, relationships, and the way we interact with the world. Each act of kindness, each moment of mindfulness, and each choice made with wisdom contributes to a life filled with purpose and fulfillment. Life's meaning is not preordained. Buddhism teaches that meaning is not something given to us by a divine creator, but something we create through our choices and our understanding of the world. Life is an opportunity to create meaning through how we engage with others, how we work to alleviate suffering, and how we cultivate wisdom and compassion. The ultimate goal, nirvana. The Buddhist view of life's purpose is the attainment of nirvana, a state of liberation from suffering and ignorance. This goal is not imposed by a deity, but is the result of personal effort, mindfulness, and wisdom. Nirvana is the realization of our true nature and the cessation of the cycle of rebirth and suffering, a personal responsibility for meaning. In Buddhism, the absence of God means that individuals bear full responsibility for their own spiritual growth and ethical conduct. Without a divine figure to impose rules or judgment, it is up to each person to determine their path and to live in a way that fosters peace, understanding, and compassion. Freedom through responsibility. The absence of a creator God can be seen as a liberation, rather than a curse. It frees individuals from the need to adhere to external commandments and instead empowers them to live in alignment with their own values. This freedom fosters a deep sense of personal responsibility. Each person is the architect of their own life, and through mindful actions, they shape their own destiny. Building a just society. Buddhism's ethical teachings emphasize creating harmony, reducing suffering, and cultivating wisdom for the benefit of all. This personal responsibility extends to society as well. Buddhists are encouraged to contribute positively to the world, not because of divine reward or fear of punishment, but because of their natural inclination to act with compassion and understanding. The spirituality of non-theism. Buddhism's non-theistic stance doesn't diminish spirituality, rather, it amplifies it. By removing the concept of a creator God, Buddhism encourages a direct relationship with the nature of reality itself. It teaches that true spirituality comes from within, through personal effort, meditation, and ethical living. It encourages practitioners to cultivate their own wisdom and compassion, ultimately finding a deeper connection with the world and with others. The absence of God in Buddhism does not mean a lack of meaning or moral grounding. Instead, it offers a different approach, one where personal responsibility, compassion, and mindfulness take center stage. In this framework, each person becomes their own guide, finding meaning and purpose in their actions. relationships, and awareness of the impermanent nature of existence. Part 7. Lessons for Modern Spirituality. In a world that often feels chaotic and uncertain, many people are searching for answers to life's bigger questions. How do I find peace? What is my purpose? How do I deal with suffering? Buddhism, with its focus on personal responsibility, compassion, and mindfulness, offers powerful answers to these questions. Its teachings resonate deeply in the modern world, where existential crises and mental health struggles are becoming more common. Buddhism doesn't offer easy solutions or promises of an external savior. Instead, it emphasizes the importance of cultivating inner wisdom, developing compassion for all beings, and learning to be fully present in the moment. These principles are not just ancient teachings, but are incredibly relevant to today's fast-paced, often overwhelming world. Self-reliance, the power of personal responsibility. One of the most profound lessons Buddhism offers to modern spirituality is the emphasis on self-reliance. In many religious and spiritual traditions, individuals are taught to look outside themselves for guidance, support, or salvation, whether it's in the form of a divine being, an authority figure, or external circumstances. Buddhism flips this narrative. Instead of waiting for someone or something to save us, Buddhism teaches that the path to enlightenment and peace lies within. This focus on self-reliance can be both empowering and daunting. It means that we are responsible for our own spiritual growth, happiness, and liberation from suffering, rather than relying on prayers or external forces. Buddhism urges us to take action, to work on ourselves, to cultivate mindfulness, to develop compassion, and to transform our own minds and hearts. Why does self-reliance matter in the modern world? In today's society, we're often inundated with messages that happiness and success come from external sources, wealth, status, power, or even the approval of others. Yet, this external pursuit often leads to stress, dissatisfaction, and a sense of emptiness. Buddhism offers an alternative. Instead of waiting for circumstances or others to change, we can change ourselves. We have the power to shape our reality through our actions and mindset. When we embrace self-reliance, we begin to see that we are the creators of our own happiness. Our responses to the challenges of life, our ability to adapt, and our commitment to growth are all within our control. This realization can be incredibly liberating. For example, in a world where we often feel helpless or overwhelmed, understanding that we have the ability to transform our own minds and reactions gives us the power to handle difficulties with grace and resilience. Buddhism reminds us that we don't need an external savior. We are our own saviors. Compassion, fostering kindness in a divided world. Another crucial lesson that Buddhism offers is the importance of compassion, not only for others, but also for ourselves. In a world where division, hostility, and competition are often celebrated, Buddhism teaches us to view the world through a lens of interconnectedness. Interdependence is at the heart of Buddhist thought. The Buddha taught that everything in the universe is interconnected, and that suffering is universal. This understanding of interdependence encourages us to develop compassion, not only for those we love, but for all living beings, as we recognize that all beings, like ourselves, desire happiness and wish to avoid suffering. Compassion becomes a natural response when we see others as interconnected with us, not as separate entities. In today's world, where people are often pitted against each other, whether through politics, social media, or competition for resources, Buddhism offers a refreshing antidote. Instead of fostering division, Buddhism teaches us that compassion transcends boundaries. We are all in this together. Compassion also extends to ourselves. Buddhism encourages self-compassion, teaching that we are not perfect and that we should treat ourselves with the same kindness we offer to others. Self-compassion is not about indulgence or self-pity, but about recognizing our own humanity and embracing our imperfections with love and acceptance. In the modern world, where mental health struggles like anxiety and depression are on the rise, cultivating compassion can be a powerful tool for healing. By practicing kindness toward ourselves and others, We can reduce the harshness of self-criticism and begin to build a world based on understanding and empathy. Mindfulness, living fully in the present moment. Perhaps one of the most transformative lessons Buddhism offers is the practice of mindfulness, the art of being fully present in the here and now. In today's world, we're often caught up in worries about the future or regrets from the past. Our minds race from one task to another, rarely taking the time to appreciate the present moment. This constant distraction and mental chatter can lead to stress, anxiety, and a sense of emptiness. Mindfulness invites us to slow down and focus on the present moment. Through meditation and mindful living, we learn to observe our thoughts, emotions, and experiences without judgment or attachment. Instead of reacting automatically to external events, mindfulness teaches us to respond thoughtfully and intentionally. The benefits of mindfulness are profound. Research has shown that mindfulness practice can reduce stress, improve emotional regulation, and increase overall well-being. It allows us to see the world as it is, without the filter of our biases, fears, or expectations. How does mindfulness apply to modern spirituality? In a world where distractions are endless and technology keeps us constantly connected, mindfulness can help us reconnect with ourselves and the world around us. It teaches us to experience life as it unfolds, rather than racing through it or getting lost in our thoughts. Mindfulness brings us back to the present, where life happens. By practicing mindfulness, we can reduce suffering by learning to let go of attachment to past mistakes or future fears. Instead of dwelling on regrets or anxieties, we can focus on the richness of the present moment, finding joy in the simple act of breathing, walking, or engaging with others. Mindfulness teaches us that peace isn't something to be found in the future. It is here, now, in this moment. A modern parable, Sarah's awakening. Let's consider the story of Sarah, a young professional who, like many of us, felt constantly overwhelmed by the demands of her career and personal life. Sarah worked long hours, juggling multiple projects and responsibilities, always striving for success but never feeling truly fulfilled. She found herself constantly anxious, stressed, and disconnected from her true self. One day, a friend introduced Sarah to Buddhism, and she decided to give meditation a try. At first, she found it difficult to quiet her racing mind, but as she persisted, she began to notice subtle shifts in her perception. Through mindfulness, Sarah started to observe her thoughts and emotions without getting lost in them. She noticed how much of her stress came from her constant striving for approval and success, and how much energy she spent worrying about things beyond her control. Over time, Sarah began to embrace the Buddhist principle of self-reliance. She realized that, while she couldn't always control external circumstances, she had the power to change her reactions. Instead of reacting with frustration or anxiety, she learned to respond with patience and clarity. Meditation gave her the space to pause and reflect before acting, helping her make more intentional choices. Sarah also began to cultivate compassion, not just for others, but for herself. She realized that she had been incredibly hard on herself, constantly pushing herself to meet unrealistic standards. By embracing self-compassion, Sarah learned to treat herself with the same kindness and understanding she offered to others. Through her mindfulness practice, Sarah discovered that true peace didn't come from external success or approval. It came from within. By practicing mindfulness, self-reliance, and compassion, Sarah was able to navigate her challenges with greater ease and find a deeper sense of fulfillment. Sarah's story is a powerful reminder that the principles of Buddhism are not just theoretical or ancient, they are incredibly relevant to our modern lives. In a world filled with distractions, stress, and existential uncertainty, Buddhism offers a path back to inner peace, a path of self-awareness, compassion, and mindfulness. The relevance of Buddhism today. Buddhism's teachings are not just relics of the past. They are practical tools for modern living. As we grapple with existential questions and navigate the challenges of our fast-paced, often overwhelming world, Buddhism offers profound lessons that can help us lead lives filled with meaning, purpose, and peace. Self-reliance encourages us to take responsibility for our own happiness and spiritual growth, freeing us from the need for external validation. Compassion teaches us to see the interconnectedness of all beings, fostering kindness and empathy in a divided world. Mindfulness helps us cultivate presence and awareness, allowing us to find joy in the present moment and navigate life's challenges with grace. In today's world, where external pressures and distractions are constant, these teachings provide a grounded, transformative path that invites us to reconnect with ourselves and others. Through self-reliance, compassion, and mindfulness, we can find the peace and meaning we are all seeking. Part 8. Buddhism and the Modern Quest for Purpose. In today's fast-paced world, where change happens rapidly and uncertainties are a constant, many individuals are left grappling with the question of their purpose. Traditional religious frameworks, which once provided answers and direction, often no longer resonate with modern sensibilities. Whether it's due to the increasing pluralism of belief systems or the waning of institutional religion, many people are seeking new avenues to understand the meaning of life. Buddhism, with its deep focus on inner growth and practical wisdom, offers a refreshing alternative, one that emphasizes personal discovery and growth over rigid dogma or reliance on divine authority. Buddhism teaches that purpose is not something we find through fulfilling divine commands, but through cultivating inner qualities like compassion, wisdom, and mindfulness. Instead of looking to an external deity or force to provide meaning, Buddhism suggests that meaning arises within, through our actions, relationships, and ability to engage fully with the present moment. Finding meaning without a creator. Many people in the modern world struggle with the notion of meaning, especially when traditional religious models seem increasingly distant or irrelevant. In religions that rely heavily on belief in a creator God, meaning is often tied to fulfilling divine will or achieving favor from a higher power. In contrast, Buddhism offers an entirely different perspective. In Buddhism, the question of purpose is not about fulfilling the will of a deity or seeking approval from an external divine force, but about living a life that aligns with natural laws, specifically, the laws of karma and impermanence. Buddhism places personal responsibility at the core of its philosophy. It encourages individuals to actively create meaning in their lives through their actions, choices, and relationships, rather than relying on an external authority to define their purpose. Here are the 3 essential pillars that Buddhism offers to help people discover their purpose in life. Compassion, central to Buddhist thought. Compassion is more than an emotional response, it's a way of life. Buddhism teaches that through acts of kindness, empathy, and understanding, we can create ripples of positivity that reverberate out into the world. Every small act of compassion, whether it's a smile, a helping hand, or an act of listening, contributes to the greater good of all beings. This sense of interconnectedness, of knowing that our actions matter, provides a powerful sense of purpose. Wisdom in Buddhism is not simply intellectual knowledge, but a deep understanding of the nature of life, particularly its impermanence. Buddhism teaches that everything is in a constant state of change, nothing lasts forever, and everything we experience is fleeting. This knowledge helps us appreciate each moment and, instead of clinging to things that are bound to change, we learn to embrace the flow of life. In doing so, we are freed from unnecessary suffering and can find meaning in the present moment, instead of chasing after elusive future goals or past regrets. Mindfulness, the practice of being fully aware and present in each moment, is perhaps one of the most practical tools for cultivating a sense of purpose. Through mindfulness, we can become more attuned to the richness of life that unfolds in every experience. No matter how mundane it may seem, purpose doesn't always come from grand accomplishments or distant goals. Often, it emerges simply from living fully in the present, embracing the flow of life, and observing how our actions affect the world around us. The Musician's Enlightenment, a story of purpose. One of the best ways to understand how these principles come together is through the story of the Musician's Enlightenment, a simple yet profound tale that encapsulates the Buddhist path to purpose. A musician, deeply frustrated by his lack of progress, went to visit a Buddhist monk. The musician had been struggling with his art, feeling lost in his pursuit of fame and recognition. Despite his hard work, he felt that music no longer brought him joy. His playing had become about external validation rather than inner fulfillment. He lamented to the monk, "I've worked so hard to perfect my music, but I feel as if I've lost my purpose. I can't find any joy in what I'm doing anymore. It's all about the end goal, fame, applause, recognition." The monk, in his calm and simple way, replied with a metaphor. "Life is like playing music. The goal is not to reach the end of the song, but to enjoy every note." At first, the musician didn't understand. After all, he had spent years perfecting his craft for the very purpose of recognition and success. But the monk's words lingered with him. The musician began to meditate on this idea and gradually realized that his obsession with the end goal had clouded his ability to appreciate the music itself. He had been so focused on the outcome that he had lost sight of the joy in the process. Through this new lens, the musician returned to his practice. Instead of playing to impress or achieve something external, he began to immerse himself fully in each note he played. He embraced the sound of his instrument, the rhythm of his breathing, and the joy that arose from the act of creating music, not for anyone else, but for himself. In time, his music transformed, not because his external circumstances changed, but because his inner approach to it did. He discovered that fulfillment came not from the applause at the end, but from being fully present with the music itself. This story illustrates the transformative power of mindfulness and the ability to find purpose through inner reflection and appreciation of the present moment. The musician's purpose didn't come from fame, but from his connection to the art and the joy of expressing it. Through this shift in focus, he regained his sense of purpose and found true fulfillment. Modern implications: Buddhism as a practical path. In the context of modern life, where many feel disconnected from traditional religious frameworks or struggle with existential questions, Buddhism provides a refreshing alternative. More people today are turning away from institutionalized religion in search of more personal, practical spiritual practices that offer real, tangible benefits. Buddhist teachings, rooted in mindfulness, self-discovery, and personal responsibility, speak directly to the modern quest for purpose. Meditation and self-reflection. Meditation, as a central Buddhist practice, provides a direct way to address the anxiety and uncertainty many face in today's world. Through meditation, individuals can begin to observe their minds, recognize the patterns of thought that fuel existential dread, and cultivate a deeper sense of peace and clarity. Meditation also serves as a powerful tool for self-reflection, allowing individuals to examine their own motivations, desires, and attachments. The importance of compassion in an increasingly polarized world. The Buddhist emphasis on compassion provides a counterbalance to the divisiveness we often encounter in modern life. Compassion is not about agreeing with everyone or solving every problem, but it is about recognizing the humanity of others and acting with kindness. Practicing compassion builds stronger connections, reduces suffering, and helps to restore meaning in relationships and communities. Mindfulness in everyday life. Buddhism teaches that mindfulness is not just something we do on a meditation cushion, but a way of living in the world. In a culture driven by productivity and multitasking, mindfulness invites us to slow down and appreciate the present. By practicing mindfulness in everyday activities, whether it's eating, walking, or simply listening to someone, we become more attuned to the richness of life and can find purpose even in the most mundane tasks. Mindfulness transforms the way we experience the world, helping us to live more consciously and with greater intention. Finding purpose in a secular age. As traditional religious frameworks continue to lose their hold in the modern world, many people are left searching for new ways to make sense of their lives. Buddhism offers a path that doesn't require belief in a deity or adherence to rigid doctrines. Instead, it focuses on personal growth, inner wisdom, and practical action. In this sense, Buddhism offers a uniquely secular spirituality, one that does not rely on supernatural beliefs, but instead encourages individuals to explore their inner lives, cultivate compassion, and live mindfully. A framework for meaning. Buddhism provides a framework for finding meaning in a world that often feels overwhelming and chaotic. By focusing on the present moment and recognizing our interconnectedness, we can build a life grounded in awareness and compassion. Meaning is not something that is given to us from the outside, but is something that we create through our actions, thoughts, and relationships. Personal responsibility and empowerment. Buddhism's emphasis on personal responsibility encourages individuals to take charge of their own spiritual journey. Instead of waiting for divine intervention or the approval of others, we are called to cultivate our own wisdom, develop inner peace, and contribute to the well-being of others. This sense of empowerment is central to the Buddhist path. It shows us that we are not passive recipients of life's circumstances, but active creators of our own meaning and purpose. Buddhism provides profound lessons for modern spirituality. In a world that can sometimes feel fragmented and disconnected, Buddhism offers a path back to inner peace, purpose, and fulfillment through practices like mindfulness, compassion, and self-reflection. We can navigate the complexities of modern life and rediscover meaning in our daily experiences. Just as the musician found purpose in playing each note, so too can we find meaning in living each moment with intention, awareness, and kindness. Part 9. Buddhism and Science, a Harmonious Relationship. In an era where science and technology are the driving forces behind much of society's progress, it may seem like Buddhism, with its ancient and spiritual roots, might be at odds with the modern world's emphasis on empirical evidence and scientific reasoning. However, what many people don't realize is that Buddhism and science share surprising similarities. Both encourage observation, experimentation, and a deep commitment to evidence-based understanding. Buddhism, far from being a mystic religion steeped in dogma, aligns in many ways with the scientific method, which values curiosity, direct experience, and continuous inquiry into the nature of reality. The relationship between Buddhism and science is not one of contradiction, but of harmony, a partnership that opens up fascinating avenues for personal growth, mental well-being, and understanding the universe itself. The scientific spirit in Buddhism. One of the fundamental principles of Buddhism is the idea that belief should be based on direct experience rather than blind faith. This principle directly mirrors the scientific method, which relies on testing hypotheses, gathering evidence, and refining our understanding of the world based on observation. The Buddha himself famously encouraged his followers to test his teachings through personal experience rather than simply accepting them because they were written in sacred texts or spoken by a revered teacher. This emphasis on direct experience is central to Buddhism and resonates strongly with the way scientists approach their work. Both the Buddha and modern scientists agree that real knowledge comes not from passive acceptance, but from active engagement with the world, careful observation, and rigorous inquiry. In the Kalama Sutta, the Buddha explicitly told his followers, "Do not believe something simply because you have heard it. Do not believe something because it is written in a book. Do not believe something because your teacher or your parents say so. Instead, test it for yourself." This principle invites skepticism, a willingness to question and verify rather than accept unchallenged truths. It echoes the core of scientific inquiry, which always asks for proof, evidence, and verification, whether it's in the lab or through meditation. Buddhism and science both recognize the value of testing and understanding the nature of the world through experience. Neuroscience and meditation, a powerful connection. Modern science, particularly neuroscience, has been able to validate many aspects of Buddhist practice, especially meditation and mindfulness. For centuries, Buddhists have practiced meditation to cultivate calm, clarity, and insight. What was once considered a spiritual or philosophical endeavor is now being explored through scientific methods, with impressive results. Meditation. One of the most well-documented benefits of meditation is its ability to reduce stress. Numerous studies have shown that regular meditation can significantly lower levels of cortisol, the hormone associated with stress. Meditation has also been linked to enhanced focus, improved emotional regulation, and a greater sense of well-being. Studies using functional MRI, fMRI, scans have demonstrated that long-term meditators have more robust activity in areas of the brain associated with focus and emotional regulation. Beyond stress relief, meditation also helps in developing a sense of self-awareness. Neuroscientific studies have shown that meditation can increase the thickness of the prefrontal cortex, the area of the brain responsible for executive functions like decision-making, planning, and self-control. This aligns directly with Buddhism's goal of cultivating wisdom and mindfulness to develop a better understanding of oneself and the world. Moreover, mindfulness, the Buddhist practice of being fully present in the moment, has also become a popular topic in scientific research. Mindfulness has been shown to enhance mental health, improve emotional resilience, and reduce symptoms of anxiety and depression. Many modern therapeutic approaches, such as mindfulness-based stress reduction, MBSR, use techniques derived from Buddhist teachings to help patients manage chronic pain, anxiety, and other mental health issues. The empirical evidence from scientific studies aligns with the Buddhist assertion that practices like mindfulness and meditation can lead to improved well-being. While the Buddha may not have had access to modern neuroscience, his teachings on mindfulness and mental clarity were clearly ahead of their time, focusing on the importance of training the mind to reduce suffering and cultivate inner peace. Example: the scientist who became a monk. One of the most compelling stories illustrating the connection between Buddhism and science comes from a renowned physicist who turned to Buddhism after facing personal challenges. This scientist, once deeply immersed in the world of physics and mathematics, found himself struggling with the stresses and demands of life. Despite his success in the scientific field, he felt a sense of emptiness that his intellect alone could not fill. After encountering Buddhism, he began to practice meditation and mindfulness. Over time, he realized that the discipline of meditation complemented his scientific mindset. Both required focus, precision, and observation, while science focused on understanding the material world. Buddhism gave him the tools to understand the inner workings of his mind and emotions. As he delved deeper into meditation, the physicist found that the principles of Buddhism aligned with the scientific worldview in many ways. He saw parallels between the Buddhist concepts of impermanence, interdependence, and emptiness with scientific principles that describe the ever-changing nature of the universe, the interconnectedness of all phenomena, and the quantum nature of reality. The more he meditated, the more he understood how the two worlds, science and Buddhism, were not separate but interconnected. This scientist-turned-monk found that meditation helped him to reduce his attachment to outcomes. Just as scientific research often requires letting go of preconceived notions to discover new insights, his journey highlighted the compatibility between these two seemingly different worlds: science's pursuit of objective truth and Buddhism's quest for subjective, inner wisdom. His experience serves as a powerful reminder that the pursuit of knowledge, whether through science or meditation, is a way of understanding the world more deeply, whether that world exists inside our minds or in the universe outside of us. Implications for modern life. As science continues to unravel the mysteries of the mind, the body, and the universe, Buddhist insights into consciousness and the nature of reality remain deeply relevant. In fact, they offer a complementary perspective to what we are learning through modern science. For example, modern science has begun to explore the nature of consciousness in ways that parallel Buddhist teachings. Consciousness in Buddhism is not a fixed entity but a dynamic process, much like how modern neuroscience describes it. In both traditions, consciousness is understood as something that is constantly changing and evolving, not a static or permanent feature of the self. Personal growth. The mindfulness practices promoted in Buddhism have been shown to enhance emotional resilience, mental clarity, and personal growth. By developing the ability to observe our thoughts without becoming attached to them, we can reduce the mental chatter that causes suffering. This ability to step back and observe our own mental and emotional patterns is also supported by modern psychology, which uses mindfulness techniques to help individuals become more self-aware and improve their emotional intelligence. Global progress. On a larger scale, the synergy between science and Buddhism can contribute to the global progress we need. By applying the insights from both fields, Science's analytical rigor and Buddhism's focus on compassion, mindfulness, and interdependence, we can create a more balanced, thoughtful approach to solving the world's most pressing problems. Whether they are environmental, social, or psychological, the scientific discoveries of climate change, for example, are paired with Buddhist teachings on the interconnectedness of all life, urging us to take action not only for our benefit, but for the well-being of the entire planet. Health and wellness. As mental health becomes a growing concern in modern society, the integration of Buddhist practices with scientific methods for improving well-being can offer powerful solutions. Meditation and mindfulness can complement modern therapeutic techniques, providing tools to manage stress, anxiety, and depression. As research into the benefits of these practices continues to grow, more people will find that combining the insights of Buddhism with the advances of modern psychology creates a robust and holistic approach to health. The future of Buddhism and science. As science and Buddhism continue to evolve, their intersection will likely become even more profound. Buddhism has long been a philosophy of introspection, personal growth, and mindfulness, but modern science is providing the tools to validate and expand upon these teachings. Neuroscience, quantum physics, and evolutionary biology are all exploring the mysteries of the mind, consciousness, and the universe, mysteries that Buddhism has been contemplating for thousands of years. Expanding human potential. The integration of Buddhist meditation practices with modern neuroscience has already shown positive effects in expanding human potential. As we learn more about the neuroplasticity of the brain and the way mindfulness can change the structure of the brain, we are likely to see even more powerful techniques for enhancing mental health and well-being. Mindful technology. With the rise of digital technology, a new opportunity is arising to merge Buddhist mindfulness with technology. Mindfulness apps, virtual meditation groups, and digital wellness programs are helping millions around the world incorporate meditation and mindfulness into their busy lives. As technology advances, it is likely that the collaboration between science, technology, and Buddhism will continue to grow, providing tools to cultivate mental clarity and personal growth on a global scale. Reconceiving reality. One of the most fascinating possibilities is how the ongoing exploration of consciousness by both science and Buddhism might lead to a new understanding of reality itself. Just as Buddhism teaches that the nature of reality is interconnected and impermanent, quantum physics is revealing that reality itself is far more complex and fluid than we once imagined. The synergy between these two fields could provide profound insights into the nature of consciousness, existence, and the universe. In conclusion, Buddhism and science, while seemingly coming from different traditions, offer complementary perspectives that can enrich our understanding of the world. By embracing both the scientific method and Buddhist philosophy, we are better equipped to navigate the complexities of the modern world, understand our minds, and contribute to the well-being of ourselves and the planet. Whether it's through the practice of meditation or the pursuit of scientific knowledge, both paths lead us toward a deeper understanding of reality and ultimately to a more meaningful life. Part 10. Applying Buddhist wisdom to everyday challenges. Philosophies are often tested by their practicality, the extent to which they can be applied in real-life situations. No matter how profound a belief system might be, if it can't help individuals navigate the challenges of daily living, its value may remain theoretical at best. Buddhism, however, is a philosophy that excels in providing concrete tools to manage life's difficulties. Whether you're grappling with stress, conflict, or the turbulence of daily life, Buddhism offers a comprehensive toolkit to face these challenges with clarity, compassion, and peace. Buddhism teaches that suffering is a universal experience. The Buddha himself spent years searching for the causes of suffering and the path to its cessation. What sets Buddhism apart is its focus on practical solutions that are applicable to the everyday struggles we all face. These tools, grounded in mindfulness, compassion, and understanding, empower us to address our emotional, mental, and physical stressors, ultimately allowing us to lead lives filled with greater peace and fulfillment. Facing stress and anxiety, understanding the roots of suffering. In today's world, Stress and anxiety have become constant companions for many. The pressure to succeed, the overwhelming amount of information we encounter daily, and the fast pace of modern life all contribute to our sense of unease and anxiety. Buddhism offers profound insights into how we can face these stressors, not by fighting them directly, but by understanding their deeper causes. The role of attachment and craving. Buddhism teaches that much of our suffering arises from attachment, our deep desire to hold on to things, people, or experiences, and craving, the insatiable need for more. We attach to outcomes, to possessions, to status, and we crave approval, pleasure, and security. These attachments and cravings create friction in our lives because, by their very nature, they are impermanent. Everything we cling to is subject to change, and when we cannot control these changes, we experience disappointment, frustration, and stress. Mindfulness as a tool. One of Buddhism's most effective tools for managing stress is mindfulness, the practice of staying present and aware in each moment. When we practice mindfulness, we begin to identify the sources of our stress. Instead of reacting impulsively to anxiety-inducing situations, we learn to observe them without judgment. We can ask ourselves, why am I feeling stressed? What am I clinging to right now? By exploring these feelings, we become aware of how much of our stress is tied to unrealistic expectations or attachments. Letting go of unrealistic expectations. Buddhist teachings encourage us to let go of expectations that aren't grounded in reality. Expectations that are rooted in perfectionism, comparison, or an idealized version of success only lead to suffering. When we accept that life is unpredictable and that everything is temporary, we start to release the pressure we place on ourselves to control everything. This shift in perspective can significantly reduce stress. Cultivating gratitude for the present moment. Buddhism encourages us to focus on the present moment and cultivate gratitude for what is, rather than longing for something else. Gratitude shifts our focus from what's wrong in our lives to what's right. By appreciating the present, whether it's a warm cup of tea, a deep breath, or a peaceful moment, we allow ourselves to feel contentment and joy in the here and now. Example: a businessman's awakening. Consider the story of James, a businessman in his 40s, who found himself increasingly overwhelmed by competition in his industry. His relentless drive to succeed had left him feeling disconnected, anxious, and disconnected from his own sense of purpose. James had been chasing after external validation, more clients, greater wealth, and more recognition, but no matter how much he achieved, he felt an emptiness inside that he couldn't fill. The more successful he became, the more anxious he grew, fearing failure and loss. In his search for relief, James turned to meditation. He was introduced to the Buddhist practice of mindfulness, where the emphasis was not on achieving external success, but on cultivating inner peace. At first, James was skeptical, but as he began to meditate regularly, he noticed subtle changes. He became more aware of the anxiety he had been carrying and, through mindfulness, began to realize that his anxiety stemmed from a fear of failure, a fear that was rooted in his attachment to success and status. Over time, James shifted his focus away from the external markers of success and began to prioritize personal fulfillment over material gain. He realized that the true measure of success was not in winning or outperforming others, but in finding peace within himself. With this shift, he not only felt more at peace, but also found that his professional success grew in a more sustainable and authentic way. This story exemplifies how mindfulness and meditation can help us release the attachment to outcomes, fostering a sense of peace and fulfillment that transcends external achievements. Resolving conflicts through compassion. Conflict is a natural part of life. Whether it's a disagreement with a colleague, a dispute with a loved one, or a broader societal issue, we all face situations where tensions arise. In these moments, Buddhism offers a different approach from traditional reactions based on anger, resentment, or defensiveness. Buddhism emphasizes compassion as a powerful tool for conflict resolution. Compassion involves not just feeling empathy for others, but acting with the intention to alleviate their suffering and meet them where they are. It's a call to see beyond our own perspectives and recognize the humanity in others, whether they are friends, family, or adversaries. Recognizing the shared humanity in others, at the heart of Buddhist teachings is the understanding that all beings, including ourselves and those we may disagree with, share the same fundamental desires for happiness and the avoidance of suffering. When we approach others with this recognition, it becomes easier to soften our judgment and respond with empathy rather than hostility. This recognition creates a foundation for compassion and mutual understanding. Approaching disagreements with understanding, instead of responding to conflict with anger or defensiveness, Buddhism encourages us to pause and reflect. By practicing mindfulness in the midst of conflict, we can approach disagreements with a more open mind. This approach doesn't mean we abandon our beliefs or opinions, but we learn to express them with understanding and respect for the other person's perspective. Compassion as a healing force. Compassion not only benefits the recipient but also the one offering it. When we respond to conflict with empathy, we release the emotional weight of resentment and anger. This compassionate response creates space for healing, not just for the other person but for ourselves as well. Example: the feuding neighbors. Two neighbors, John and Mark, were locked in a bitter dispute over a property line. The tension between them had been escalating for months, with each trying to prove the other wrong. The situation became so heated that it affected their families and even their community. Desperate to resolve the issue, both men visited a Buddhist teacher in the hopes of finding a solution. Instead of taking sides, the teacher encouraged them to see each other's perspective. The teacher guided them to practice compassion by imagining the other person's struggles, fears, and frustrations. As John and Mark meditated on their shared humanity, they began to soften their positions. They realized that the conflict wasn't just about land. It was about a lack of communication and mutual understanding. Through compassionate listening and a willingness to understand one another, the two men found common ground and were able to peacefully resolve their dispute. By focusing on compassion instead of competition, they restored harmony not only in their relationship but in their community. Finding joy in the ordinary. One of the most remarkable aspects of Buddhism is its emphasis on finding joy in the ordinary. In a culture that constantly pushes us to achieve more, acquire more, and be more, Buddhism offers a refreshing reminder that joy doesn't come from future success or material possessions. It comes from appreciating the present moment. Buddhism teaches that the ordinary moments of life, drinking a cup of tea, taking a walk, having a conversation, can be filled with profound joy if we approach them mindfully. Instead of rushing through life or waiting for something better to happen, Buddhism encourages us to slow down, savor the present, and recognize the beauty in the simplest things. Mindfulness in everyday life. Whether you're cooking, driving, or just sitting in silence, mindfulness helps us appreciate life as it is. The practice of being fully present allows us to experience life with clarity and gratitude, transforming routine moments into meaningful experiences. Cultivating gratitude. Buddhism encourages us to cultivate gratitude for the small, everyday moments. Gratitude shifts our perspective, allowing us to see the beauty in the mundane. When we take time to appreciate the present, we find that joy is not something we need to chase. It's something that's already here, in the moments we often overlook. Final reflection: a life of purpose and peace. As we incorporate Buddhist wisdom into our lives, we discover that happiness isn't a distant goal. It's a state of mind we can cultivate every day. The teachings of Buddhism provide practical tools to navigate life's challenges, whether it's managing stress, resolving conflicts, or finding meaning in ordinary moments. By embracing mindfulness, compassion, and gratitude, we can transform our lives and cultivate a deeper sense of fulfillment, purpose, and peace. In a world that constantly demands more from us, Buddhism offers a simple, yet profound, alternative: a life focused on the present moment, rooted in compassion, and shaped by a deep understanding of the interconnectedness of all beings. Through these practices, we not only find peace within ourselves but contribute to a more harmonious and compassionate world. Now, after exploring the core teachings of Buddhism, do you feel a sense of clarity about life's greater questions? Has this journey shown you that the answers to our deepest desires and existential inquiries don't always lie in external sources or divine revelations? Instead, they reside within ourselves, shaped by the way we think, act, and connect with the world. Buddhism, with its focus on personal responsibility and inner transformation, offers a pathway that empowers us to take charge of our lives. It teaches us to recognize that we don't need to wait for divine intervention. We are the architects of our own destiny. By understanding our suffering, practicing compassion, and living mindfully, we can create our own meaning and peace in a world that often seems chaotic and uncertain. If you found this video insightful, don't hesitate to like, comment, and share it with others who may benefit from these teachings. And if you want to continue your journey of self-discovery through the lens of Buddhism, make sure to subscribe to Charles' Mindful Nexus for more content like this. Let's continue exploring together, expanding our minds and deepening our understanding of ourselves and the world around us. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. This introduction and conclusion are designed to captivate the viewer, spark curiosity, and encourage engagement with the content, prompting them to like, comment, share, and subscribe to your channel. The message aligns with the core values of Buddhism, offering a modern perspective on how to find meaning in life without relying on external forces.